Okay. So we are recording. This is English 103. We are in week 6 already of the semester. So we are a third of the way done with our semester. And we are going to be starting Unit 2 this week. I do want to just point out quickly on activities, your final draft submission, the final submission for this, I believe, essay is due this week, Sunday by midnight. But pretty much all of our time moving forward now is going to be focused on the next unit. And the next unit is based on rhetorical analysis. And you're going to, at the end of this unit, you will have to submit a final draft of a rhetorical analysis essay. Now, let me go back here a minute. In this week's activities, obviously I already mentioned you're going to have to submit the final draft of the, I believe, that's just kind of out there hanging. You just got to submit it now for grading. But the other items, there are 3 other items. There's an H5P video, 2 of them actually, and they're both aimed at rhetorical tools. Both are focusing on logos, ethos, and pathos. So we are going to be talking about that today. And then there's 3 ads. There's a worksheet that I want you to also complete, practicing identifying elements of logos, ethos, and pathos. Now, these activities are focused on one key section in your essay. So in my mind, it's best that I go over what the end essay is going to be and where you can find those instructions. So if you did not see me click in, let me go back one more time. In our resources, you click into rhetorical analysis instructions and rubric. And of course, anything in green is a hot link, and you can see one of the first things, rhetorical analysis essay instructions. And then of course, I always provide a grading rubric for each one, okay? But I think it's beneficial if I talk through this today. I don't know that I'm going to talk about every single detail, but I do want you to at least have an understanding or a feel for what this essay is going to be like. It'll be radically different than your previous essay that you are submitting this week, the, I believe, narrative. I am not sure if I want to enlarge this. Let me see. Yeah, I'm thinking, just a second, sorry. Trying to play with it so that you can see it. Okay, here we go. Now, there are a lot of sheets in this instruction. I think there's like 5 or 6 sheets. The reason there's so much detail is because in this particular essay, it is a very high structured essay, which means I want you to do it a particular way, and you must include particular elements within this essay. So what I've tried to do with the instructions is break it out by section for you. For this particular essay, ultimately what you're going to be doing is analyzing an advertisement. In particular, I'd like you to analyze a magazine advertisement. The reason I say magazine advertisement is because part of your job within this essay, one of the sections, is you're going to have to analyze the context in which you find the ad. So one of the things I want you, starting right away, as of this recording, as of today, I want you to begin looking for a magazine ad, an ad in a magazine. Now, traditionally, I have always said I want a print magazine. However, I am fine if you do an electronic magazine. Here is my little caveat for this. It's much easier for you to find information on print magazines when you go to research the context part of the history of the magazine. Most magazines have a media kit, and you can get that information easily off the internet. So if you want the easiest research to do, you will pick an ad from a print magazine, old school print magazine. However, if you want to do it from an online magazine or a little bit different, that way you can, I certainly do allow that. I am going to warn you, it'll be tougher for you to find context. It can be done. I'm just saying you may have to do a little extra work. So the purpose of this essay is kind of analyzing ads. Now, I give you an example up here as we think about commercials. Commercials are a type of ad. And one of the most famous, I guess, programs for commercials is the Super Bowl. Many people don't even watch the Super Bowl. They just tune in for the ads. There's a lot of hype around Super Bowl ads. However, advertising takes place in all forms, not just commercials. You can see them on billboards when you're driving. You can see them on the internet when you're on Facebook. You know, I don't know about you, but on my Facebook page, quite often I'll get pop-up ads. Most websites have some sort of advertising on it, or they include it. But there's also old school advertising in which there are print items. So for example, right now in my mailbox, almost every day, I have a handful of either postcards or flyers or brochures advertising for a particular political candidate. So whether we like it or not, advertisements are all around us. We are inundated with ads, and they help drive and shape our consumer habits, our buying habits. And when I say our, I mean the United States, American. So they drive and shape American consumer habits. And consumer, of course, is what you are purchasing and buying. Advertising is a really, really big business. Companies, doesn't matter what size they are, often hire advertising agencies to create specific advertisements or create advertisements that will be effective for their product. And when I say effective, it will hopefully persuade people to purchase their item or a specific product. Sometimes the purpose of advertising is to make you feel a certain way about a brand, not necessarily purchase, but maybe the way you perceive a brand. So this unit, we are going to be analyzing and examining visuals and information, how they influence our thought. That is a key item there. It is going to have to be a visual. So for example, I'm not going to allow radio ads. If you are going to have trouble with a visual, or you need some special disabilities, or need to address some things, this is going to be an issue, then please let me know, talk with me. I do have an alternative essay you can be writing that will still be analysis, but I will probably allow you to not do a visual. However, for everybody else, we are just working on a straight visual. The formal item is a rhetorical analysis, and what that really means, it's a very close reading of text to find out if it works to persuade a specific audience or its intended audience. In other words, they're not just trying to persuade everyone. They're actually targeting a particular group to try to persuade them to purchase a specific product. How are we going to do that? We're going to be looking at a very close reading. We're going to be examining an advertisement. And we're going to make the determination of how and even whether it persuades its audience. So by learning the fundamentals of rhetoric, in other words, the art of persuasion, In this unit, you're going to be able to analyze any type of text. We're going to pick an advertisement, but you'll be able to analyze this on any type of text. So the first step, and this is what you need to be starting today, is you're going to need to locate an advertisement you want to analyze. Now, as I said before, I encourage you to choose an advertisement from a magazine you look at maybe on a regular basis, or you have a subscription to, or it can be an advertisement for a product you're thinking about purchasing. I know in my house, we become hyper aware of ads if there's something we're looking for. So for example, my husband was looking for a new lawnmower. He started looking through ads for Lowe's, for Menards, for all these different places, and starting analyzing particular advertisements. Online magazines will work. So although I think it's easiest for you if you choose an ad from a print magazine, I do not restrict you to that. What I tell students, the easiest thing for you to do is to go through an old batch of magazines that you may have, or maybe your great Aunt Fanny has laying around, maybe mom has them, maybe dad has them, who knows, and then pick an ad from that particular magazine. You will need to provide a copy, a color copy of the ad, or you're going to have to provide a hot link to the ad's location if it's online when you are submitting. So whatever ad you choose, whether it be print out of a magazine that you can touch with your hands, or if it's an electronic, in other words, you went online to a magazine, you are going to have to provide me with a full color exact ad. So it's either an exact copy, full color, or it's a hot link to where that ad is online. Now, and it will have to be where the ad is located, by the way. So you can't just Google ads and just find an ad. You will have to have it within the context that it's being used. So hence the hot link. Now, if you choose to go with a print copy, the easiest way for you to provide me with a photo is take a picture with your phone and then upload the file with your essay. Pay attention from the sourcing. This is very important from day one. Whatever ad you choose, you are going to have to provide information of where it was found and then the context of that location, which means important information associated with the source you found it. So for example, maybe you went through Uncle Frank's stack of magazines in the basement, and he was a big subscriber to, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a hunting magazine. Is there a hunting magazine named Bow Hunter? Does anybody know? Okay, we'll pretend there is. Bow Hunter. And so it's very important that you know the issue, the date, the year, where that is located. I would recommend you just hang on to the whole magazine until you have all of your information gathered, because you will have to do research on that magazine to find out things about the history of the magazine, who publishes it. You also need to know the audience that it's marketed to, you know, who reads that magazine, that type of thing. So when you are finding your ad, don't just stop at finding the ad. If you are looking at an online magazine, make sure you document information where you're finding the ad, day, time, location, all of that stuff you're going to need for the essay. So step one, you are locating an advertisement you want to analyze. I cannot emphasize enough, you want to possibly choose an advertisement about a product that you are thinking about purchasing yourself, or it can be from a magazine that you look at regularly. What I find though now, a lot of students don't read magazines. Does anybody read a magazine anymore? See, that's what I was a little worried about. How about online magazines? Does anybody read online magazines? Okay, so this may be a little new for you. So you may need to do a little research. Now, the one thing I want to really emphasize with you is I don't want you to spend money on a magazine. Magazines are not cheap. If you want a subscription, or even if you just buy a magazine in the store. How many of you have been in the grocery store and you see a magazine at the checkout rack? Have you ever seen those? Okay. They sell them in pretty much every store, but they're very expensive quite often. Like I used to like People magazine. I would buy a copy occasionally as I'm walking through. Yeah, go for it.
I work at a grocery store.
Yeah.
So on the racks right next to like the snacks and everything, there's different types of magazines, like People's, Women's Health, there's like sports magazines and everything else.
You work at Family Fair?
Huh?
You work at Family Fair?
Yeah, I do.
I'm trying to get a job there.
Oh, great. Hey, look at that. We got some networking going on. That's awesome. Yeah. So as you're going through the grocery lines, you see them all the time, but I don't want you to have to spend money on them. So if you want to do from a print magazine, just so you know, go over to the SMC library and they have their old magazines. Ask for old magazines that you can rip out or that you can take. Okay. You can't do it off the ones off the shelf. They don't want that, you know. But an older magazine, they usually will let you just have the magazine, or at least you can get the ad from it. Don't rip out your ad from the magazine. You want the whole magazine only because you're going to have to do a lot of information on it. And it's just easier if you have the whole magazine until you are ready to submit. At that point, then you can just take a picture of the ad. But a lot of times if students take a picture of the ad too soon and then they don't have the right information, they forgot, or the magazine's not there anymore and they're missing information in their essay, they don't have a way to get it. So think about that before you rip out your ad. But anyways, if you go over to library and say, hey, I'm doing this essay, I need an ad, they have a super secret stack they'll bring out to you, and you can go through that stack and take one. And you can look until you find an ad that you like, okay? Otherwise, as I said, you are welcome to go through Family or wherever. A lot of times doctor's offices, medical places, dentists, those kind of places, they get rid of their old ones. And if you just go in and ask, can I have one of your old magazines, whatever, they'll give it to you for free. So the point I'm trying to make with you, unless you are already going to buy a magazine, I don't want you to have to spend money. There are sources out there you can get a magazine. That being said, if you don't want to do off a print magazine, you want to do it online, great. There are some online magazines that are free. Great. And if you want to pay for a subscription to an online magazine, knock yourself out. But I am not saying you have to. You can do some research and find one for free. The bottom line, you are going to have to be required to provide me with a full color copy or a hot link to where that ad is located within the magazine. Okay? So step 2, after you've chosen your ad, now I want you to take some notes. Take a bunch of notes. Now, one of the things that you need to be aware of is, and we're going to talk today about rhetorical concepts. So we're going to actually start this today to help you take better notes. So I'm going to talk about these things in a minute. But when you're taking notes, I want you to read chapter 3, pages 11 through 24 first. So you have a base for rhetorical concepts. And then review the resources on ethos, pathos, and logos. And I have Prezi presentation. I also have videos talking about them. And I'm going to talk about them in a second. After you've taken notes on your advertisement, by the way, some other notes you're going to need about your advertisement, I'm going to talk about in the sections coming up. So step 3, when you draft your essay, this is going to need to be organized in a particular order. As I said before, This is a very highly structured essay. I want you to use headings that I give you. So I give you the heading, use the ones I give you. Don't forget we are MLA format for everything, which means everything, the headings included, the headings should be in a 12-point standard font, which is Times New Roman style. I do want the headings bolded, and I want them flushed left, which means left aligned. However, topic sentences to each paragraph should illustrate understanding of how topic sentences work. So you're not just going to jump into paragraphs. Remember, every paragraph should start with a topic sentence. So here are the sections you are going to have in your essay. And I want you to use these headings. So I want to just quickly go over each of the sections first. I'm going to just introduce it to you. So the first one, let me highlight so that the recording shows up. So the first heading is introduction. I want to see if I can highlight. Okay, excellent. So the first section you're gonna have is introduction. It's about a paragraph. The second section is going to be visual aesthetics. And this one is going to be approximately 2 paragraphs. The third section is going to be rhetorical situation. And this one is going to be approximately 2 paragraphs. I should say minimum of 2 paragraphs. And then the next section is going to be advertising's 15 basic appeals. Again, this will contain at least 2 paragraphs. And then you're going to have a conclusion. And that should be approximately 1 paragraph. So what I've done is I've highlighted the different sections. These are the different sections and headings you are going to have in your essay. So you can see there are several different sections. And when I say you are using the headings, those are the headings I want you to use. I want you to have introduction. It'll be Times New Roman style, size 12. It'll be bolded, and it will be left aligned. The next section, we'll use the heading visual aesthetics. Once again, Times New Roman style font, size 12, bolded, and left aligned. So on and so forth for each of those headings, okay? Now, as I said before, one of the reasons this instruction sheet is so long, I mean, there's multiple pages, is because I tried to be as detailed as I can, helping you out with what each section is going to contain. And we're going to be spending our class time the next couple of weeks talking about elements for each of these sections. So the first section, which is introduction, in the introduction, I want you to briefly describe the advertisement you've chosen, talking about just main features, and then I also want you to explain why did you choose this ad. As you are telling me why, or telling the reader why, give them a brief context of the ad. That means where you found it. In other words, what's the name of the magazine, what issue, those kinds of things. What audience does this ad typically appeal to? In other words, who's the target audience? And then you are building toward a thesis statement. Now, in this essay, I want your thesis statement to be at least I want it to be limited to 2 to 3 sentences. And it should answer these 2 questions. So your thesis statement is 2 to 3 sentences. And within those sentences, you have to answer these questions, tying the information together. So the 2 parts are, what specific reasons make your advertisement persuasive or not? Use a transition word in there. And then, is your advertisement persuasive or not? Meaning, is it effective for the audience that it's targeted? So I'm going to skip the 2 examples. There's example 1 and example 2. And basically what those are, 2 different ways in which they did a thesis. One is where they thought the ad was persuasive to the audience. The other one, it determines it was not persuasive to the audience. So your thesis statement, if you think of this way, 3-sentence formula, when you're doing your thesis statement, in sentence 1, make sure you tell me the information on product, audience, and magazine. Sentence 2, slip in the elements of ethos, pathos, or logos, whatever they're using. And then in sentence 3, you're determining yes, it's effective, or no, it is not persuading the audience, and then why. So if you look at these two, the first one, and if you look, they follow the formula. In the first one, it says Victoria's Secret's attempting to draw the audience of in style, young and middle-aged women to buy their new cotton underwear. Whereas these brands may turn a small selection of women off through their use of colorful, attention-grabbing images and text, the ad appeals to ethos with their model and brand while using the desire for attention. Therefore, Victoria's Secret will successfully persuade young women to purchase the company's cotton underwear. So all of those elements, it told you the product, the audience it's targeted, the magazine it was found. It told you what elements of ethos or pathos or logos was being utilized. And then there was a judgment call. Yes, it was effective in this case. That's what they chose and why it was effective. The second one, again, they follow the same formula, except they don't think it's effective. So the Toyota Camry advertisement is attempting to appeal to the young female readership of Teen Vogue. So if you notice, they're talking about right there, what the product is, who the audience is, and the magazine that it was found in. Even though the ad showcases a wealth of potentially persuasive information about the car, including gas mileage and extended warranty, it lacks appeals that would stereotypically or traditionally draw young females who may not be interested in information, but instead style. Therefore, the advertisement contains information that will not successfully appeal to the very young readership and would have been stronger if the advertisers used better imagery, bright colors, logic pertain to lifestyle. Okay, so then it goes on to tell you why. So you can see both of them follow the formula. They're talking about product, audience, and magazine initially. They examine elements of either ethos, pathos, and logos. And then they make a determinant telling the reader, yes, it was effective, or no, and why. So those are models for you on what your thesis. So as you can see, our thesis is going to be a little more complicated this time around. It's a minimum, I shouldn't say minimum. I want it to be 2 to 3 sentences. It is okay if there's another one on, but I do want you to try to limit it to 2 or 3 to make it concise.
Paragraphs?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, wait, 2 to 3 sentences per paragraph?
No.
That's not.
Within your thesis.
Oh.
The thesis statement alone is 2 to 3 sentences.
Right, but each paragraph is 7 sentences, right?
Yeah, as a general rule, it's a minimum college level paragraph, so you're looking at 7 sentences. Now again, don't get too hung up on counting sentences. Good writing is not about a word count. It's not about minimum number of sentences. You could certainly have great paragraphs with 4 sentences if they are incredibly well written and they are compound or complex sentences. However, a good rule of thumb is, college level paragraphs are a minimum of 7 sentences. The thesis statement, though, that's what I'm focusing on right now, is 2 to 3 sentences. So within the introduction, you have a paragraph. Within that paragraph, 2 to 3 sentences are your thesis. And it comes at the end. Because remember, I tell you in the beginning of the introduction, you are telling the reader, explaining why you chose it, briefly describing, and giving a context for the ad. The second section is going to be visual aesthetics. In this section, it's at least 2 paragraphs. Basically, what you're doing is painting a picture for the reader of what your advertisement looks like. Be detailed. so that your reader can visualize the ad almost as if they don't have a copy of the ad itself. So things you are addressing in this section are things like the layout, where things are. Are things looking far away? Are they up close? Are they large? Are they small? Are they in the left-hand corner? Are they at the bottom? Look at colors. When you're talking colors, don't just say blue. Do a little research. What kind of blue? Is it cyan blue? Is it teal green, sea green? You want to be very explicit when you're talking about colors. Colors are significant. So don't just say red shirt. You want to be very detailed. Yes, ma'am.
Are we able to do ads that we see online?
Say again.
Are we able to do ads that we see online, like if we're like on a music video, we see an ad?
So you're at, I just want to make sure I understand what you're asking me. You're asking, can you do it if you see it online?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. If you find an ad online, you're going to be allowed to. Correct. However, you are going to have to provide me with a copy, complete, color, everything of that ad in the context that you found it.
What happens if the ad is a video? Am I able to send like the link to it?
So, yeah, you can give a hot link as long as I can see it in the context that it's being done. So yes, short answer. So the question, in case you couldn't hear it for the recording, can I use an ad on the internet? Absolutely. You have to be able to provide the ad within the context that it's being used. So therefore, a hot link would be perfectly acceptable. You will want to double check that hot link to make sure it works every time though. So I know quite often things on Facebook or whatever, they change. So you will have to kind of check that, just so you know. But yeah, absolutely.
Because the ones I mostly see on YouTube, like especially the one that I always keep seeing that makes me want to buy.
Yeah, now it's interesting you say that, because I also have noticed that on YouTube, but it's my particular people I follow. I've noticed. So like I follow this one sewing blog all the time, and she always has an ad from So Easy, which is like sewing machine items, right? And it's videos, and you're exactly right. When I'm on her blog, she always has that. It's those. So yeah, that would be perfectly acceptable. Keep in mind, you want the context. You're going to want the context. It's not just completely YouTube. It's what are you watching on YouTube? It's someone's video would be the context in which you are seeing it, correct? Or are you seeing it on all different videos?
On different videos sometimes.
Okay, so then you are definitely going to want to be exploring and doing some research on how YouTube determines advertising, because my guess it's based on your profile that they have done. You know, I mean, they're going to target you with particular ads different than what they might target me. Does that make sense? So yeah, you're definitely going to want to research, and we'll talk about that on how they determine their audience. That's what they're doing. They're targeting a particular audience. So absolutely, great question. Okay, then don't forget you're going to be looking at text and images. Pay attention to focal points. In other words, where's the reader's eye drawn to? And even though you're going to submit the link, pretend your reader can't see it. That's the best advice I can give you on describing. Then the next section is rhetorical situation. Now this is different from rhetorical appeals. Oh, sorry, I forgot to highlight. That was another section you're going to do. So rhetorical, let me add this in for the recording. So that's another section that you're going to have to address. So rhetorical situation, this is where you're explaining the context of how you found the ad. You touched on it in the introduction because you said where you found it and that kind of a thing. But in this section, you're providing the reader with deeper information of the situation, and these are the 4 components you need to address in this section. So you're going to be talking about the company or the writer. In other words, who is responsible for the product being sold. So for example, if I'm trying to think of a product right now. I don't know. Somebody give me a shout out. Give me a product that you see advertised all the time. Anybody? I got a lot of quiet ones. What's the one you always see, the advertisement?
Well, Nintendo.
Okay, Nintendo. But is it just Nintendo or is it a specific element from Nintendo?
Well, back when before quarantine started, it was always like the game console, and plus the Animal Crossing game that was coming out. I always saw that, so which made me buy it because I really wanted it.
Okay.
But now I see ads about like the subscription bundle, where I can get like more things from it.
Okay.
So I've been seeing that a lot.
Okay, great. So let's focus on, initially it was you said it was the console, right? So, okay, so when you see the console, does it have a specific name to it?
Switch.
Switch? Am I saying it right?
Switch.
Switch? Okay, you can tell I'm a real big gamer. Okay, Switch. So you see advertisement for Switch. Okay, so the first thing, one of the things you gotta look at is, okay, who's the writer of the company making the product being sold? Okay, so you already said Nintendo, right? You need to do a little history. You need to do a little research. You got to look up Nintendo, look up the mission statement. What other types of products does it sell? And you can find a lot about a company if you just go to the website, okay? However, when you are doing this in the essay and you're talking about this information, make sure you're citing. So this is where you are going to be your in-text citing here. It might be something like, according to the official Nintendo website, they make 5,000 products over blah, 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 okay? The company is based out of whatever, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But you have to acknowledge where you get that information, okay? So in this section, you're gonna be citing. Then in this section also, you're talking about the message or the text that, in other words, what are they trying to persuade people to buy? And then what kind of details can you find out about that particular products? Things like cost, where you can buy it, those kinds of things. And then the third part in this section, you're going to address context. This is in what magazine or in what format is the advertisement appearing. So for example, we just talked about this. Hers was on a YouTube channel that she would always see this. So you are going to have to find things like date. And so it's not just in, let's say you have a print magazine. If I find it in People magazine, I need to know which specific issue of People magazine you found it in, okay? And is that relevant? Does it matter about the time it was published? So for example, with yours, if you talk about Switch with Nintendo and you found it on a particular YouTube channel that you watched, yeah, I think timing and issuing is significant. Why? It's during COVID. Nobody can go anywhere and do anything. Huge, they are targeting people just like you who are trapped at home, can't go out and socialize. They want to entertain themselves, make time go better, go faster, right? And it's also significant on where could you buy it. My guess, you could not go to the store and buy it, that you had to order it online, Amazon, something like that. So that's what you are addressing. So context is important to the particular time. So make sure you're addressing those things. And then of course, who's the intended audience? Who are they targeting to buy that? See, it's not everybody. That's a really, I'm glad that you said that. Most are not targeting everybody. Most have a specific audience that they are targeting. That ad was made. So keep in mind, there are no ads made by accident. There's a huge process. Every element of the advertisement has been thought about, examined, usually by a team of people. And they have a specific audience that they're trying to target. So and I'm going to use Switch again by Nintendo, where you saw it on your YouTube channel. This is interesting because I never, ever, in all the time I've been watching YouTube, whatever, have ever seen an advertisement for that. Why? Because they're targeting, my guess, your age group for their items.
And especially also constantly these days, constantly being slammed by political ads.
Yeah, now political ads, again, they're not aimed at children.
No.
They're aimed at voting adults. But certain ads are aimed at different demographics, right? Depending on what they're saying and how they're saying it. So absolutely, that's something else. So anyways, things to think about with your audience. Now, number one, how do you find out the audience? It's not a guess, and it's not everybody. So this is why I say print magazine is usually the easiest, because you can go online and look up their media kit. You go online, look up the media kit, and it will tell you the audience demographics. So the reason we're talking about this is in magazines, depending on the magazine, that will be a huge reveal of who the audience is for that particular advertisement. If you see an advertisement in Martha Stewart Living versus an advertisement in Gamers Secrets, they're not targeting the same people. Do you understand that? People who read Martha Stewart magazine, Martha Stewart Living, that's not the same audience that reads the Game Informer or Gamer magazines. So this is why it's good if you look up the media kit to determine audience, okay? Remember, you don't have to discuss elements of the rhetorical situation in that order. You don't have to go A first, B first, C first, D first. However, you have to have all of them included in this section. So if you want to start with audience and then move to context and then do the company, that's all fine. The point is you got to address all four of those elements. Then the next section you're going to have to address is rhetorical appeals. And this is logos, ethos, and pathos. This is what I'm going to talk a little bit about today and kind of introduce you to. That's what this week's activities are all geared about. And so this is probably the longest part of your paper, you know, the longest section, the largest section, because you are going to have to define each of those appeals in your own words, or you are allowed to do a quote and discussion of the quote from it. So as you are reading, maybe you read in our textbook the definition and you want to use a quote from our textbook, you're allowed to do that, but then you must discuss that quote in your own words. If you do not want to quote, then that means you can summarize things in your own words, but you have to use all your own words. However, make sure you use the 3 I's with your quoting. And we talked about this in our last essay. Introduce, right? You know, your bun, your meat, and then your other bun. Now, don't forget, you also have to explain which ones appear in your magazine. And if it doesn't appear, acknowledge it. You might not find any logos. There are no elements of logos within this magazine, but you have to acknowledge it and say, and then suggest what they could have done to include that. Make sure you talk about each element and where it appears in the ad or elements being used within the ad that demonstrate it and how they're trying to persuade the audience. Not all ads have all 3. However, the best ads contain elements of all 3. But as I said before, if there's not one there, then absolutely acknowledge it and say what could have been done. The next section is on advertising 15 basic appeals. And in this section, you're going to be referring to an article by Jib Fowles that he wrote. You're going to summarize briefly that article and then connecting it to the pathos side. So Jib Fowles is focused all about pathos, all about emotion. And in this section, you will need to quote from the article. He talks about 15 basic appeals. Essentially, you're going to identify which appeals you see in your audience, in your advertisement, and then quote from his essay, because of course he names them. And so when you're using the name, you are taking that from Jib Fowles. You have to identify at least 2. There may be more, but I limit you to the 2 most important. And then of course your conclusion. And at this point you're sharing your personal opinion, talk about quality, talk about the elements you considered, This is where you're coming right out. Did it successfully persuade? Yes or no? Are you part of this audience? Yes or no? What are the strengths? What are weaknesses? What would you suggest that could have increased success? What may have worked better? Okay. And then one really crucial part is the critical thinking, which is, you know, why is it important for us to learn and view and analyze advertisements in a critical way? So think about that both socially and culturally. Now, I just want to caution you about plagiarism in this. I have told you very specifically you need to cite in specific sections because we were working on the promise. You did not know this information off the top of your head unless this is your field or career. So make sure you are citing properly. Now, again, we use signal phrases, things like according to Victoria's Secret website, or you might say, as Jim Fowles states in his Advertising 15 Basic Appeals article. You know, those are signal phrases. In other words, you're introducing it to the reader. Remember, everything is MLA in text. You do need MLA in text citation. The whole essay is MLA formatting. And yes, you are going to have a works cited page with this. So essentially, I've already told you at least 2 areas where you're going to have sourcing. So a minimum of 2 on your works cited page, because you're going to have to talk about the company and the history of the magazine. That's actually 3. If you cite something about the company and you look up something about the magazine, and then you have Jim Fowles, that's a minimum of 3. So what are the requirements? The bottom line, these are just the overviews. This is a minimum of 4 full pages, double space, MLA, works cited, and then yes, you have to provide a copy or a hot link. Questions so far on this before I go into logos, ethos, and pathos? Yes? No? I saw a hand. Lucas, question or no?
No.
Oh, okay. All righty. So again, this is on our Moodle page. So it's all right there with rhetorical analysis, essay instructions. My recommendation is you print it out and have a copy of it with you as you are working so you know all the elements. But if you don't want to print anything, that's fine. It's always there for you.
What does it do actually?
The due date is on Moodle. I got to think about this. It is going to be week 9, I believe. Week 9. Let me double check. Yep, week 9. So we're in week 6 right now. By the way, that's your final draft for grading that'll be due week 9. We're going to be doing drafting on it and other elements with it.
So that will be due considering the 8th of November.
I don't know. Let's see. We're in week 6 right now. 7, 8, 9. Yes, probably correct. November 9, it looks like. Oh, I'm sorry. No, it'll be November 8. It's always due Sundays. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So keep in mind, we're going to be doing activities building up to it. You're going to be doing drafting and some reviewing and all those kinds of things for each of the sections. So the first section I want to focus on is, of course, rhetorical tools, logos, ethos, and pathos. Oh, before I do that, though, I do want to just point out, if you want to get a feel for what one looks like, I do have some sample pages in here. So when you open these up, just keep in mind that, I can't remember if the samples, yeah, they do. They remembered to do the headings. So if you'll notice, their headings are not the same as what I have told you to do. Use the ones that I told you to do in the instructions. So this is either another instructor's or my old instructions, and I've changed it since then. But you can tell that the headings, you can see it's the same size font, but it's bolded and it's left aligned. In this case, they provided right embedded color add within their item, within their introduction. I'm sorry, before their introduction. and that they talked about why that they have it and those kinds of things. And so you can also see this one does not have a Works Cited page, and they don't have, oh, yep, they did. They do have their quoting in text citations, but keep in mind, you got to have a Works Cited page whenever you do that. Let's see the Starbucks, if that one's got everything. So keep in mind, these are real student samples, so there may have been mistakes. So this one, the ad right there, so you can see the ad. And again, the headings are aligned. Again, their headings do not match what I want you to write. So make sure you use the ones that I give you. But you'll notice, yes, they do have their in-text citation, but they forgot, or we forgot, to add the Works Cited page. I'm not sure which. It could be one or the other. Okay, so, but it gives you an idea of the format that is needed. So those are the samples. So for this week, we are focusing on logos, ethos, sorry, and pathos. And I have resourcing for you. Logos is logic, elements of logic to persuade the audience. Pathos is emotion, elements of emotion that help persuade the audience. And then ethos is credibility. When you click into the resources, if you click into the Prezi presentation, this one's a little confusing. There's 3 videos. Those are the ADA compliant. We had to do that because Prezi is not ADA compliant. But if you want the Prezi presentation, it's right here. You just click on that link, and then we come up here, and it's going to play for us. Let's see if I can make it bigger. So if we do ethos, logos, and pathos, I always do it in that order, but you'll notice it's not quite that way. So ethos is ethical or moral. The author or creator's credibility, believability, likability. It's kind of giving credibility to it. It can be either within the text, intrinsic, or outside. The speaker or writer has to demonstrate credibility to be persuasive. So this is kind of, if you think about fixing your car, who has more credibility, a mechanic or your next door neighbor that works for the city? As a general rule, the mechanic, right? That's what gives him credibility.
I don't think neighbor is a mechanic.
Yeah, right. That could be. Maybe he is a certified mechanic. I don't know if you guys ever remember the OxyClean, if you've ever seen these ads. Are they still playing? Do you ever see them? So these are a little bit older. You may not recognize them. Oh, it's not playing for me. Sorry. I don't have sound. I apologize. So you can watch that one. We're going to go back here. Sorry. And, oh, come on, Grandma. There we go. But this one, it talks about what's the credibility. Well, part of the credibility is with OxyClean is they gets out the stains. They show you a before and after. Another one here. Let's see if we can see this one. If you're sick, you go to a doctor, she gives you a prescription. Would you take the pill? Well, probably, because it's based on the doctor. She has ethos, she has credibility, okay? What about if you're at the mall with a friend and they give you a pill when you're sick? Same credibility? Probably not. Okay, so pathos is emotion or feeling. So sometimes there's stories, scenarios. When you're persuaded by pathos, you accept a claim based on how it makes you feel. You can be persuaded by a lot of things. It can be fear, it can be love, hatred, joy. If you watch political ads right now, there's lots of emotion tied with persuasives.
Too much.
Yeah, pathos can be extremely manipulative. I give you a couple examples. This is an old World War II pathos. If you look at it, they're playing on what emotion? They're trying to play on fear, right? And let's see if we can. Okay, let's try this one. This is the most powerful one, I think, is the ASPCA. If you've ever seen those commercials, they just plug your heartstrings. Absolutely. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out, there we go, here we go. All right, the last one is logos. This is logic or reason, and it refers to any attempt to appeal to intellect. This is more of patterns, conventions, kind of method for reasoning. These are like numbers, polls, facts, statistics. And let's see if we can pull this one up. Logos, come on, Grandma. Doesn't want. Oh, there we go. And so how is logos being used here? Well, they're giving me information, 5 seconds. Minimal amount of time your attention is taken away when you're texting or driving. And then over here, if you're driving 55 miles an hour, that's the length of a football field. So if you're not looking at the road for 5 seconds, you've traveled the length of a football field without looking. So they're using statistics, some facts, not statistics. They're using facts to try to persuade. Let's see here. Come on, Grandma. There we go. So let's see if I can get out of here. I have no idea if I'm going to be able to.
Press the escape button.
I don't see it. Where do you see the escape button?
Do you have it? Is that touchscreen?
Oh, I can use my keyboard. Sorry. Thank you. Clueless wonder that I am. Okay. So that's there. You can go through that at your leisure. Let's see. And so the reason this is confusing is that's the Prezi presentation. You can go through all the elements, but we also provide you the 3 videos. It goes over the same information in the Prezi. It talks about logos, ethos, and pathos, but in video. So if you'd rather watch it in video format, so down at the bottom, that's what that disclaimer is all about. So this week you are exploring logos, ethos, and pathos. The activities I have are interactive videos, and there's 2 of them. So as you know from prior experience, interactive videos mean there's videos with questions embedded. I don't know why. Oh, here we go. So to start this, all you do is you press the play button, and you'll see at the bottom those 6 circles. Those are questions embedded. And you do want to make sure you answer all the questions. This is a grade. It goes in the grade book automatically. Now, one word of caution with this, you want to make sure you play it all the way to the end, all the way to that little star, because you need to play it all the way to the end and submit your answers for it to go in the grade book. If you don't, then go back and do it again, please, until it does. You'll know you did it right if there's a grade book if there's a grade in the grade book. So both of those items are both interactive videos. They're meant to get you more familiar with rhetorical tools. And then the third item is a worksheet. And essentially, it's a worksheet I want you to complete the questions. So when you open this worksheet, you want to enable editing right up at the top. And then there are 3 ads, and in each ad, I'm asking you what, if any, elements are being used to represent ethos. Ethos is credibility. So what is being used for credibility in there? Can you identify that? And then same thing, what, if any, elements are being used to represent pathos, emotion? What emotion is being used? How is it being used? So you're going to answer those same questions for all 3 of those ads, and then save it on your computer and upload when you are done. As always, all 3 of these are due no later than Sunday midnight, 1, 2, 3. And then of course, the I Believe essay submission is due Sunday before midnight as well. but that's kind of an old one outstanding. You're just hopefully wrapping that up and just kind of polishing. Questions or concerns on this week's items? Week 6 is where we're at. No? Yes? Okay. Let me see if I can stop recording, and let's do stop share. We're going to end everything.